Here we go, Blue Star Media Podcast 41. I'd like to thank everybody who's now come over from the Blue Star Twitter Periscope network, because Periscope, obviously, as I had problems getting it up, they don't want to deal with the software, and they're going to create some more avenues or channel the advertising. Surprisingly, there's more video out there today to do other things. So, three things we're going to talk about today are the NCAA NIL vote. The NCAA convention starts on Monday. They have a 125-page agenda. Now, the biggest item on that agenda, besides all the other recruiting and standard housekeeping, which I'm shocked that they're not going back and trying to clean the NCAA manual up due to what's coming, which is NIL, because that has a lot of problems. And last week there was a big story. Well, I shouldn't say last week. I should say on Thursday there was an article by Michael Smith, and they talked about what the legislation looks like on Monday. And even though they've been working at it for months, and there's so many committees, and I must have spent. There's like one, I think it's podcast 40B. And I know a lot of the other ones all through the winter have been about NIL. But what's happening is that with the election, there's more Democrats. And since they now control the House, they're going to be able to get their bills into Congress, which will get passed probably easier than it would have been if it was a split Senate. So, they control the Senate. So, what I'm saying to you is that there's a lot of forces at play, and they may hold off on NIL because they may be afraid of saying, yeah, we're going to pass it, and then Congress says, oh, no, we're not going to listen to what you say. And, in fact, we're going to do even worse. And they want to use the time to be able to get more people on board. So the SEC Commissioner, Greg Sankey, he's a very influential person. He wants them to pump the brakes. And this is a very important, Tom McMillan, very famous basketball player, and also became a state senator or I think he was a state representative. And he also is the president and CEO of Lead One, the Association of FBS Athletic Directors. So even the Power Five and the top schools, football powers, have their own AD association. And they basically, I mentioned it last podcast, maybe A40A, that they're having their own body to make sure that there's more diversity in hiring, not just coaches, but administrators. But Lead One is a very powerful group. If you think the coaches are powerful, well, this is really the Power Five or, the FBS, athletic directors. They're the major football powers. And if anybody, and remember I mentioned that the Knight Commission mentioned to these people, Lead One people, that maybe you want to break away and form your own group. So it's very influential. Tom McMillan said, it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't have the vote. Well, it's supposed to happen at the end on a full day for the council on Monday. Well, guess what? And if they did, it wouldn't become official until January 14th, Thursday. So the biggest issue here is, they know that they have the Austin case going before the Supreme Court, and you have Cory Booker from New Jersey and Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut introduced a bill, Athlete Bill of Rights for consideration by Congress. A bill that would significantly alter the model of college athletics. As I mentioned before, and I think probably in maybe 40B, that there's a big need for medical help once you finish playing, because people don't want to talk about that. But, with the swing in the Senate and now the House, things are going to change. So here's probably the most important for all you coaches and players and parents of high school kids you need to know. Here's the major conflicts. The big one is this has been it from the beginning. It's the sponsorship conflicts. That's why the NCAA, remember back in April, May, I mentioned about the NCAA marketplace, and I said, that's not going anywhere. Well, notice we never hear about it anymore. So then within about a month after that, you see all these new companies popping up like Influencer and all these other companies saying, we're going to control your administration of the NIL for the athlete. Oh, we're going to charge them and we're going to charge you, and you're going to use your sponsor money, and we're going to help regulate the athlete. So you can't get blamed of holding them back. Basically, they're hiring a third party to take care and do their dirty business. Well, the biggest issue from the giddy up was if I'm going to sponsor a school, say a bank, a car, a shoe, an apparel, whatever, and I'm saying I'm spending $1 million on that. Wait a minute, I can pay the top athlete 100,000 or 200 and hire him an assistant and get the same bang because that person's the star. I don't need to, pay everybody else, including the school, who's like using their cut and to pay the coach, and who knows? Listen, bottom line is they don't want the athletes having the sponsorship and the conflict. So now, if you listen back in May and June, even July, August, oh yeah, we're going to control the sponsorships. Now it's so bad that they're scared to death to do that because they know that the people in Congress and state laws are coming that could really upend it and say, hey, there are no rules whatsoever. They do as they please. And if you got recruiting problems, it's not our problem. So sponsorship conflicts, big one. Okay. They wanted to make sure that the proposal was very restrictive on the athlete. But, it's, don't you think the athletes are going to complain? And there's a lot of privilege there too on both sides, athletic privilege, academic power privilege. Figure it out. It's going to happen. But this is the second one, sponsorship conflict. The second one is, can I use the school colors in my ad? Oh no, but I want to use the school logo. No, you can't. And if that was very, very put out there in the summer, that it's adamant that no school marks be allowed. And I mentioned this. In fact, I even dragged up a newspaper from 1980, from the 80s, might have been 84. I know I have, that showed where they're telling the schools to register their team logo and their team names. This is back in the 80s. So you really think they're going to allow the athlete to have it without charging them? Oh, but are they getting their services? But then I think I mentioned there was an article in SBJ that talked about how a quarterback's worth $2.4 million, but what's a lineman worth? What's a sub worth? What's a person on the bench worth? Those are interesting situations. Compliance, big one. Seriously, if you're a top program, are you really going to step on your premier athlete if that person's worth $2.4 million? Or are you going to piss them off and say, okay, I'm out of here, I'm going to go transfer over here? We're not going to make that compliance so difficult on me. And then our school is going to try to put in there, well, let's hold the conference down because the bottom half of the conference is trying to keep the top half from dominating. Happens in basketball already. So, this is the great one. The athlete needs legal education, tax education, financial literacy. They need to understand LLCs and 1099s. You can talk about building a brand, but the fastest way to not have a brand is to be ineligible. Is that how they're going to control the athlete? Recruiting. Here's the number 3. Everything in Cal comes back to recruiting. Hey, we're going to make sure that we get you in fact, you're going to have your own Pizza Hut. What? Yeah, we're going to make you the spokesman for the Pizza Hut in town. Okay, you're going to do commercials and we're going to pay you. Whether you realize or not, a lot of the college coaches have a standard salary. What they do is they make their additional money on, quote, media. And so a lot of coaches, a lot of schools have the leeway to make additional income for the coaches based on their media and their platform on their TV show or whatever. They get, quote, paid for that. Well, the school gets to sell advertising for it, which is a way to redirect the income back to the coach. But if you see a lot of schools are going to try to hold back on giving bonuses for winning a conference or making a tournament which is going to come up in a later podcast. I'll bring that up later when I get some more information about what's going on there. They may say, well, we can't give you those bonuses anymore because it's only for 2 to 3 sports. And how come the golf coach or the soccer coach isn't getting that bonus? Now, all of a sudden, you got another problem. So the recruiting is going to be a big deal. And those who can shower the most attention on an athlete and their family to say, here's where you can make the most money, bravo. I think it's brilliant. Agents propose a very narrow role. This is the NCAA proposes a very narrow role for agents, which will allow them to talk to athletes about their marketing, but not about their professional sports opportunities. Opponents call that impractical and unenforceable. Yeah, it's like me calling you up and saying, hey, how's the weather? Oh, no. Here you go. I'll use a better one. Hey, Katie, is Tim there? No, he's out. And I'm just here with AZ. Oh, well, put AZ on the phone because that's who you really wanted to talk to. Yeah, so there you go. That's going to happen for high school, for recruiting, everything. It's going to be out of control. And at a certain point in time, I'm going to go over that with people so that they get an idea what that means for younger players and for people who are looking to do some things down the road. Point number 2 is, and this is a short one, I mentioned it yesterday that the NBA is having their own bet system. A lot of the NBA teams are starting to have, sponsors from Bet, MGM Bet, and all these other bet programs. Well, even the colleges are starting to now do it. Well, guess what? You're going to see literally mobile betting, sports gambling betting, just explode. And as a parent, what do you do with your kids? Do you really want them to gamble? Do you really want them to see that type of what you can bet on everything? Now, obviously, they'll be like, oh, yeah, you can't download it or your parent has to do it or something like that. Well, they're watching the stats because all the stats are going to be on every screen down the road on every type of sports contest. So you can bet on it on your other window. Or you're going to have to swipe your phone to go over and bet and then come back to the game. Or guess what? You're going to have your phone here and your iPad here, or your phone here and your TV here. All right? And I'll throw this in. CES starts next week. And I mentioned that earlier on podcast 40. Normally I'd be there next week. I'm not there. In fact, for the first time in 30 years, at least 30, I haven't traveled as much as I have. In fact, I've been home with the books, with everything here, with everything from last March till now. It's been very hard. Been to a few places, but not many. It's very taxing, very different change. I can't begin to tell you some of that effect of going from never being here to always being here. I mean, for some of you parents who didn't see your kids for 4 years of college, or you didn't see them, much during, high school while they're in school every day, and they're home because they're doing virtual and you see them every day. Yeah, it's having an effect. And, and I know people talked about the mental health aspect of COVID and all that. I can tell you, I believe it. It's firsthand because I see it. I see it in others. I see how it affects. It's just your change, and people don't do change well. I'll tell you right now, I do not do change well. In fact, I'm more difficult with change than I would like to admit, and that's just how it is. But, these are different days and trying times. As I said, 2020 was brutal. It wasn't 2019. And 2021 is not going to be 2019 or 2020. 2021 is going to be a hybrid of 20 and 19 in reverse. And it's going to be a fight right now for what 22 is going to be, because there's so many people, power brokers out there that are too busy worrying about some of the stuff we talked about to not think about the future. But I am. And I know a lot of people are. So a lot of people who I would look on the Periscope broadcast and I'd see who watched it I'd be like, oh, wow, okay. A lot of very important people. And it'll take them some time to get over here to YouTube to watch us. Let me make this statement, which I didn't. If you get a chance, down below, subscribe, hit that bell so you can get a notification every time I do one of these. And because I can do these not live, but I can do them when I get a chance, and I can make them shorter because I don't have to throw everything in at like 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night. I can do this like anytime, day or night, and just post it and get it out there, or have it ready to hit and send so everybody gets notified. Last thing, this will be it. And I know I'm on here for 15 minutes, and I want to try to keep it within that 15 to 20 minute range. And this is something I mentioned yesterday. And how will COVID-19 affect scholarships for future collegiate athletes? They talked about, well, I can tell you right now, colleges are worried about donors. And if there's anything COVID did, killed people's income, students are like, hey, why am I donating to a college? Because it ain't like the 50s and 60s when it was rah-rah pom-poms and, we hung out with college. Today, it's like, it's a diverse America. It's a diverse attitude about, is their college education valuable? And why am I giving them my money? And then the country's going to have a real wake-up call over the next 5 years about wealth distribution. And if you really want to read something or look at something, dig up, Google the Great Reset. Okay. And and this is why I believe that basketball is not a part of that, because basketball takes a work ethic to succeed. A lot of that stuff is about, I deserve it because I breathe and you have it and I take what you have. It'd be like you sitting down at a table having dinner and I come over and take your steak because I like it. Or I put my fork in your food and taste it because, oh, I was curious. And you don't have the right to stop me. A little exaggeration, but it's coming. But this is, how's COVID going to affect future collegiate athletes, especially the scholarships? All of these sports programs, with the exception of men's basketball and football, are feeling the blow of the shutdown. Programs, along with scholarship hopefuls, are dwindling to non-existent, dwindling to non-existent in many sports. Those with talent will rise, but those who don't play the two most popular sports will have to search for the alternative ways to be seen and get school funding. That means the primary sports, football and basketball. But women's basketball could end up seeing scholarships cut from 15 down to 12. And if I was somebody in power, I'd make the cut. Why? Because you have lacrosse, you have volleyball, you have soccer, softball. Those four main women's sports. We didn't even get into track and field and some of the other stuff, really minor Olympic level collegiate sports. Those four, they get half, if not 40% of the scholarships that basketball gets. So if they say basketball's got 15, lacrosse may have 13 or 12, or no, they may have 6 or 7 that they can divide up. Softball may have, like, they give coaches full rides, half rides, or they'll say, we're going to give you 10 full rides a year and you can break them up however you want. And now you can sign like 13 people, but you'll take your fulls for your top people. There was a big article maybe about a year ago, and you can look it up. It was Google UCLA swimmer scholarship and read about that parent and that family and how they decided on going to school and, quote, getting a scholarship. They just happened to want to go to UCLA, because a great school. And Corey Close, the head coach, women's coach, will be able to tell you, yes, Mike, that's correct. And she's a good person. And so this is not about her, but it says that's what people would do to go to the school, even if it's on a quarter scholarship or a third scholarship for swimming. And she was trying to be an Olympian. So what does that tell you? So this talks about that stuff. And with this blow and the rise of businesses such as Google now waiving formal schooling requirements to work for them, it makes you wonder what will become of those who would have gone to the traditional school through scholarships. Basically, I mean, do you really, if you're the day of formal education, which is schools are dreading, but this is what COVID's teaching, do you really need to go to college? Or you could just become really good at home at a future job. I mentioned this. Go to Venture City on YouTube and watch all those videos about Elon Musk and what he's telling you what the future is. Listen, people are coming from south of the border to try to get in. Yeah. Pick your administration and your party, who wants in, who doesn't want them in. But at the end of the line, they're coming here for jobs that they can't get because there's going to be AI. So now think about this. If you can't get a job because you're not skilled, and automation, you see how in Japan they have restaurant servers that are robots now. So who's serving you in a restaurant as a sideline job to pick up money? A single mom, second job, a father, doing work. Those jobs are going to be picked up by computers and robots. Not right now, but you're starting to see the trend. Hey, what happens to all those Uber drivers when, there's now Waymo and autonomous cars? You just get in a car and they'll take you there and you don't need a driver. In fact, if you don't have an electric car with Waymo, you won't be able to even rent your car out to a company to make extra money. And so guess what happens to all the car rentals companies? Goodbye. What happens to all the people doing Uber? Goodbye. What about the additional income? Those people who are doing those jobs are looking for additional income, and they're looking because it's hard to get a job, if you're like a sports marketing major, or hey, if you're a journalist, good luck, because there is no more journalism as it was traditionally. So what are you doing for your future? So you parents, you basketball people, you coaches, you need to educate your recruits, your college players, and your recruits that you're looking to get, because the parents are going to be smart and they're saying, hey, my kid's going to college for a scholarship. What job are they going to have in 4 years with a digital economy? Well, guess what? Those people coming over the border and a lot of people who were out there in the summer protesting, rioting, looting, good cause, bad cause, Antifa, whatever you want. I'm not part of it. But what I see is that a lot of young people, what are they doing and where's their future? And if they're going to have a hard time getting jobs, then now you understand where a universal basic income and the Great Reset and a lot of this socialism. It's kind of funny, but this was a big topic 100 years ago, which everybody seems or you lost their minds or forget. All you have to do, go ask your grandparents or parents if they always saw the movie Reds. The movie Reds was about the Bolshevik Revolution, and John Reed, who was a journalist in 1917, and he wrote 10 Days That Shook the World. And they made it into a movie with Warren Beatty called Reds. Well, guess what? It was a really good movie, but what was intriguing is that they had interviews with the actual people who lived during that time, who were then old, and they actually talked to them. Unfortunately, the movie didn't put the titles under who they were, but I recognized some of them when I was younger, and I was like, oh, I remember that person. But guess what? Here we are 100 years later, and I remember working at the Daily News, and I said to somebody, Will Williams, he was on the desk at the night desk at the Daily News, and I was a clerk there. And I said to him, Will, how come we didn't have like communism here? Or how come socialism didn't go crazy? And if you know the Wobblies and the WWW, well, he basically, because he was younger at that time, and he basically said to me, it was the unions. I go, what do you mean? He goes, the owners figured out, well, if we don't give in to the unions, then the population's going to revolt. Well, you saw that riot in Congress and all that. Everybody's like, oh, I'm so appalled. Really? Hey, guess what? Did you look back in history? And if you don't know who Douglas MacArthur was, general during World War II, World War I veteran. He was at the Army. I think it was the Army Chief of Staff or somebody but he was on horseback, and all the people who were in World War I were protesting to get their get back pay, retirement pay, because it was like bad times. And they basically put the police on them to wipe. It was a veterans camp. Go look it up on Google. I'm not telling any fibs or lies or, hey, guess what? People have the right to do as they please. And if they please, and it's, like I said, I looked at it and I turned it off because I learned enough. And news in America is now divisive because you can make money. It's about negativity, and people are using social media and the news to disparage and create negative narratives because it creates eyeballs and clicks. It's called clickbait on social, and it's called eyeballs on TV. And that's why you see all these news channels coming up all over the place. They want a piece of that billion-dollar election cycle, and they're going to rev it up. And you think it's going away? They'll carry it on. They're going to create anxiety for the next 2 years, for the next midterm elections, and then they're going to have it even ramped up higher, so that they create a greater frenzy and make advertising money. So, what this is going to be is, and this is the other part, and I mentioned this. Former UC Davis AD Blue believes that the most unappreciated challenge to the long-term health of college athletics is the aging fan and donor demographic. There are a lot of more worthy causes to donate to nowadays, and college athletics sometimes is not as much a priority for younger generations. There you go. Black Lives Matter. God bless. Raised $10.6 billion. Where's the money going? And I see a lot of people down on their knee. I'd be getting up and saying, hey, how can we create something that creates change? Not voice change, not like I feel good change, but goes in and makes definitive, on the ground, change lives, education, just do something. Because there's an underclass. In every strata of society, there is an underclass. How are we helping them? And God bless for that type of fundraising. But if I'll be sad and upset for those who stood up for it and don't get change for the $10.6 billion that was raised. Where to go? Who's managing it? Who's getting a piece of the pie? Not coming to me. And guess what? Who's it going to? Who's managing it? Who's it going to benefit? And what's the cause? What is the real cause? As I always said, hey, this is why basketball is great. I believe what we do in basketball is a positive. It helps people get that journey forward, and if you want to play, our goal is to help you be the best you can, to get that scholarship, to get into college any way possible, to change your narrative. And that's why I believe basketball is special. The parents are special. The kids are special. And I believe what we do in basketball is great. And that's why the coaches, and from youth and travel and high school, even to you college coaches who may be watching this, even the college administrators who watch us, you all have a part in this journey. So you may not donate, you may not be the right social profile that they're talking about, but we're all on board for the same cause, is to change the narrative. Because we're trying to succeed. That's the bottom line. Not everybody gets a medal. Not everybody's equal and we all win, we get a medal. No, you put in the work, you should get a reward. And that's what I support and everybody supports. So I want to thank everybody for their time. Come up on 30 minutes. So Blue Star 30 minutes, Blue Star Media. Like I said, hit the bottom button, subscribe, bell so you know. I appreciate everybody coming here to YouTube to see where we're doing the podcast, and we're going to up the ante by doing more of these. And thank you.